Welcome to the Confidence Through Health podcast. My name is Jerry Snyder. As a health, wellness, and sports performance coach, my goal each week is to bring you experts to help you take control of your health and build your self-confidence. Thanks for including me today on your journey to better health. As an elite level runner and coach, I'm excited to introduce you to the All In Running Club. The All In Running Club exists to help you become a better runner. Whether you're a beginner, an elite runner, or anywhere in between, the mission of the All In Running Club is to give you the tools you need to find your success in running. Join today to take advantage of the 75% off yearly membership rate offer. Click the link below in the show notes to learn more. So thank you, Clayton, for being a guest on the episode 194 of the Confidence Through Health podcast.
194. So it's a.
Yep. So
I'm trying to do the math for numerology. It's a 5. We're in good shape.
Right. So I'm excited to talk to you. We talked a little bit beforehand. I think you and I have a lot in common in our approach to health, in sort of the background from it. But so you and your wife started this company, Root Wellness. Like, why is wellness? Why is this space important to you and her?
It's interesting. For me, the journey is really unique. The majority of people, when we look at kind of the health and wellness space as it's constructed in today's world, most people get into it because they have an issue, right. That they're like, I went through this and I had to address it. And right. This is what I learned from it. And this has been my journey. And this is, how I can help or
right.
Whatnot. Mine was, the exact opposite of that. I was born and raised in it. And so my parents, my dad, both of my parents went to Washington State University. My dad went to veterinary school there. Right. So after he graduated, after his first year, they ended up opening a clinic in a small area in Southwest Washington State. And, so literally from the time I was 1 year old, I was under the counter in the clinic. And, from the time I was functional at 4 years old, I was in the waiting room talking to people. I was with animals. I was in the lab. I was, studying mineral supplementation when I was 8 years old. And, looking at parasites and,
right.
And bacteria and worms and fecal samples and blood work and understanding how these things work. And then having my parents be very integrative. It was interesting to see the transition because early on, I had a great adoration for Merck and for the pharmaceutical industry, right. Because my parents would prescribe drugs, and the more drugs that they prescribed, the more TVs and different things we got, which was kind of cool. It's like this is an incentive program. This
right.
is really cool.
Yeah.
And my mom would tell me, she's like, look, if you want to make money, because I was always told as a kid I could sell anything, and that just came from socialization, right?
Right.
Sales and everything is just a communication,
right?
And she's like, look, if you want to make money when you get older, you need to go to pharma, because of how you were raised, what you understand from anatomy and physiology and, what you've been brought up in, you've got to go to the pharmaceutical industry because you can apply that. But then, growing up, this was like 12, 13, 14. And, there's just the piece of synthetics and chemicals are not the way. And my parents grew from doing that to, understanding that in animal performance, it's twofold. It's lifestyle and environment and diet.
Right.
And that applies directly into human health as well. It's lifestyle and environment and diet. And, so being able to compete athletically, it's a nice part of having track guys. You get to be the distance guy. I'm the short distance guy.
Yep.
And, being able to compete, we're the original biohackers, right?
Oh, yeah.
It was athletes that were like, okay, well, what do we do? And all this craze over, cold plunges. I'm like, we used to sit in the whirlpool filled with ice up to our neck for about 36 minutes just to see who could stay in the longest.
Yep.
Right. It was a recovery thing, but it's not like, oh, well, you get this dopamine hit and everything else. It's like, no, it's just what you do.
Right.
But, having this journey, as an athlete, being able to experience a pretty catastrophic injury and the importance of recovery and, training and diet and exercise and lifestyle and, different lasers and puppy puncture and acupuncture and essential oils and diet and mineral supplementation and all these different things. And everything has been focused on addition, right? It's what you need to do, what you can do to add to your lifestyle. How do you do this? And I had this epiphany about 18 years ago from a colleague that called me and said, "Hey, there's this product coming out. I don't do science," because he actually dropped out of school in 8th grade. And he's like, "Look, I don't do the science part." He said, "I'm good at sales and marketing, but you know this stuff. Check this out." And that little referral actually was the first time that God went, "Follow that." And it changed my perspective, because my thought process took a 180-degree turn, that the real issues have nothing to do with what we add. It has everything to do with addition by subtraction.
Right.
So it's the environmental toxicity issues. It's the environment. And the environment's really interesting, because it's not just the environment of outside. It's the environment that you were conceived in. And how this plays all the way through. And as you address environmental toxicology, how that plays into anatomy, physiology, psychological, emotional, spiritual, and physical performance, and then adding stuff in. And then about 8.5 years ago, I was out in California working with one of the brands that I had created. I was training a sales rep, and she told me that we needed to meet one of her friends that she's known from the health industry, which was John Sally. And I was like, "Look, I love the bad boys. I mean, I love basketball. I got to meet John." But we met for a day and sat down, shared some ideas and concepts. He's been raw vegan for 20 years, which was an interesting.
Wow, I didn't know that about him.
Because I'm an O. And I told John, I'm like, "Bro, I grew up in a veterinary practice. 2, I'm an O, and I love animals too much to not eat them properly." But it's like, "Look," and he's like, "Everyone should be vegan." I'm like, "No, John, it might work for you, but it doesn't work for everyone."
Right. Well, it's interesting because I've been raw vegan for a year.
And it works for a lot of people. It can, if it's done right. I think this is the important part, because I talk to vegans and they're like, "Give me the potato chips and all this stuff." I'm like, I just don't think you're following the plan the way it was intended. Right. But being able to figure out the importance of identifying what works for you specifically, and then being able to tweak it. And John, we met, and then a week later, he ended up going back to New York for an NFL and NBA Players Association conference on pharmacogenetics and regeneration. And Dr. Christina Rahm was one of the keynote speakers there, and he met her at dinner. It's like, "You need to meet this crazy guy I just met out in California, because you guys could change healthcare." And he put us on the phone, and it was the second time that God went, "Follow her, and you'll be able to do what you need to do." So we had this introduction, and a couple of weeks after we were introduced, I moved from Seattle to Nashville just to be there with her and to support her and try to figure out how we could do stuff. And her background is kind of the antithesis to how I grew up. She grew up in Southeast Missouri. Grew up in the soybean fields of Missouri. Got sprayed by pesticides constantly as a kid, playing in the field, and they thought it was cool. It's like, glyphosate is friendly. Maybe not. So her journey, was, getting her, Lyme disease when she was 19. She won National History Day in middle school. So she contracted Lyme when she was 19, lost her memory. Came out of it, what they discovered was an eidetic memory, and she could still speed read. But she ended up getting her master's in science. She now has 3 PhDs, a PsyD and EDD. She's finishing her MD right now for fun.
Nice. Oh, gosh.
But she was, she's been at Harvard in nanotechnology and bioscience engineering, Cornell in pharmaceutical management and nutritional counseling. She was an adjunct professor in oncology and hematology at Hopkins, and she was 20 years in biotech.
Wow.
But what the interesting part was, is there was a prophecy put over her like 25 years ago that she was put here to heal people in a war on healthcare. And so her journey has been really unique, because it's all been predicated around these experiences, this path that she was supposed to walk that led to this timing. And when we were put together, it was unique, because she was told by the former director of the CIA 20 years ago that there was going to be a biological event that Pfizer was going to be at the forefront of. This is 20 years ago.
Wow.
And this is how it was going to play out. There's no more nuclear issues. It's going to be biological. And this was what was going to be done. And then, for working with the Chinese government and doing these things, but her biotech background of being able to do cloning, being able to do molecular design, working on mRNA vaccine research 16 years ago on HIV, and understanding what they do in biotech and pharma. We talk in the health space about quantum physics and energy and frequencies and all of these components. People don't understand that biotech's been doing that for 20 plus years. It's how it's one of the most crucial things they do in formulation.
Yeah.
But being able to bridge those and allowing her to take her understanding of nanotechnology, bioscience, and instead of taking some parts of nature and trying to synthesize to create synthetics, in the pharmaceutical or bioscience approach, being able to take nature and using some of the mechanisms and some of the processes and the quantum physics and frequencies and, the magnets and intention that you can use to construct formulas, being able to take that into, you can say, the nutraceutical world. And if you understand stacking in bioscience engineering and the importance of ingredients and what you can do, what now people are talking about microdosing, because you don't need volume, you need quality, and you need frequency, and you need the right combination. And if you use the right combination of ingredients, with the right amounts of the right things, it's a lot like baking and cooking.
Yeah.
Right. So if you are a master, you can do some really unique things with flavors. The same thing goes with ingredients, of being able to create, nano emulsions and different components that have not been done before in supplementation, because no one's come from that world. And that, that opportunity created, the impetus to create Root. Which was, if you have the goods, and our goal and our mission was to be able to create, solutions for people to reverse aging, which she holds a patent on, the reversal of aging now, but also improving performance, but the simple aspect of allowing people to become what we were made for, which is greatness. Right. It's that philosophy that each of us has greatness within us. And being athletes, it's easier for athletes to understand this, because we never have a desire to be mediocre in anything. Right. It's always the pursuit of greatness, whether it's, competing against others or it's competing against yourself, and how you can work to continually perform better, whether it's as an executive, whether it's as a parent, if it's, if it's stretching and working out and training, or if it's sleeping, right, which is the most important component. Putting all those together and being able to create solutions. And then in February of 2020, we thought it was a great idea to launch it.
I mean, timing's great.
It was perfect. She knew what was coming, and she's like, you don't want to do this. And I'm like, we have to do this. And she's like, well, I'm not going to be able to work with you for the first year, because I have to go work on some COVID remediation projects for some countries. And like, you're crazy. I'm like, you like me because I'm crazy, and I'm sticking to this. This is going to work. And we created a new approach to business. And I think this was one of the things that saved us. It's one of the things that allowed us to get to the point we did so quickly, is we just wanted to tap into social influence. Right. That if you're a company, if you provide solutions, and if you can get outcomes, as we were talking about, because that's the key. If you're not producing outcomes, you need to change everything that you're doing. But because that's the only thing that matters. And if you take care of your customer base is going to do the one thing that we do naturally. They share. And, we just put our entire focus into valuing those who create value. Right. So I built an algorithmic fintech model that just rewards social sharing. So we had the people that we knew that were close to us and said, hey, if you try this stuff, order it. If you like it and you share with your friends, we'll reward you for it. And, we went from 0 to 27 countries in 30 days.
Oh, wow.
Just watched it go boom. So in the last 3 years, I mean, we've watched this little sociological experiment now do over $100 million in revenue.
Nice.
And watch it just impulse. And the interesting part is, having a woman from biotech, we've got research registries and, that's in 74 countries to actually track outcome data. So the big part is being able to play within the landscape of the healthcare industry, even though that we're an integrative, alternative, to the traditional. But if you know the game and you know how the game is played,
Yeah.
If we want to make a real difference in healthcare, we have to play within the system.
Right.
And the system actually wants to change. This is the interesting part. If so many people look at pharma, they go, pharma's not going to change anything. I'm like, yeah, but pharma's not the one writing the check.
Right.
It's the payers.
Yep.
It's companies. It's self-insured companies.
Mm-hmm.
It's the Blue Cross Blue Shields, the Humanas, the Aetnas. It's these large, very large groups that are insuring people, that are paying for all of this chaos. And they're like, no. If you can help people get healthier, we will give you massive amounts of money because you're going to save us magnitudes more than what we're going to pay you. So how do we do this?
Yep.
And it's getting to that point. So it's been a journey.
Yeah. Well, and I've heard that. I heard that a couple of years ago that especially it was starting in the Medicare world, that they were like, we're not going to pay for these surgeries anymore unless you start living healthy first, because we're going to pay for it. You're going to go back to living unhealthy, and then we're going to have to pay for something else later. Like, you have to prove if you want coverage. Okay, if you would need the bypass surgery, prove within, like, okay, I get it. If you go to the hospital because you just had a heart attack, you had no idea you were sick or any of that kind of stuff. Like, okay, but if you're in that stepping stone of, we're going to put a stent in. Okay, let's go put another stent in. Like, they're going, no, we're not covering that because you've got time to fix this.
And it's the interesting part of population management, because it's been a conversation in healthcare since the beginning.
Yeah.
And it's the hard part for a lot of people to understand that, it's a business, right? Yeah. So businesses, whether it's a healthcare system, whether it's a country, whether it's a hospital, they're going to look at it and go, okay, the 75-year-old, has all these comorbidities and all these complications and has this heart condition. A lot of it's because of these other comorbidities.
Right.
The amount of money that it's going to take to do this operation, is it even worthwhile to do it? Or do you let nature play its course? Do you say, you need to do these corrective measures? And a lot of this can be reversed, right? That's the crazy part, is understanding that all of our chronic degenerative disease issues are actually related to environmental toxicology. And that was published in the 1970s, so knowing that, look, if you take an integrative approach first, and I think this has been the flaw of how the healthcare system has been hijacked, is we went from, and you can look at it in different cultures. You can go to Asia, you can go to Europe, and they know it's like, look, if you have to go to the doctor for something, somebody failed along the way.
Right.
That you have to go the alternative, and it's funny that it's the alternative when it's actually the primary. Right. This has been how the business aspect in the United States, and the United States is the only place that it works this way.
Yeah.
Is they're like, oh, we'll give you drugs, we'll do surgery, we'll do whatever because we're getting money, regardless of what the outcomes are, the risk of side effects, the complications going forward, because you're never addressing the underlying issues. So you're going to have this cascade of issues. And if you're charging for that service to provide prescriptions, then you're going to make trillions, but you're going to burden a system.
Yeah.
So,
well, and it's sort of, this is where the food issue comes into play, is that, like, you could look at it and go like, okay, well, you're going to run out of customers at some point. Well, then, okay, well, now if you make the food worse and bring toxins into the food, when you talk about ultra processed foods, like, you can't find one that doesn't have some sort of toxicity into it. And so you're feeding people that are maybe, and to go back to vegan, like you were talking about, like, there's plenty of vegans that eat stuff that's like all the Beyond Meat stuff and all these new, like, that it's like, okay, well, that's not food either.
Yeah. It's like, no, those don't count. It's like, just because you're not doing meat per se, or you're not doing animal products that are, that are not ideal, you go, no, just that doesn't mean Twizzlers and, potato chips and some French fries with mayonnaise are actually acceptable. And but it's vegan mayonnaise. I'm like, okay, good for you.
Right. Exactly.
And it's that balance of knowing, the environment. The crazy part with the food supply, we were just in Greece for 9 days. We got back early, end of last week, and the food over there, like, we were with a few friends. We're going to restaurants. We're eating bread, which I'm an O, so especially here, you can't do it.
Right.
We're eating bread over there. You don't get sick. You don't get bloated. And people are like, can we be gluten free? I'm like, they don't use glyphosate here.
Right.
Gluten doesn't matter. And they're like, huh? I'm like, just trust me, you'll be fine. And they're like, no, we don't do that. Our olive oil is the best in the world. It comes from Crete, and it's real olive oil. So you can do this and you get all these benefits. And I was like, wow, I love the Mediterranean diet. And came back. I was like, well, I gained 7 pounds. And that was due to volume.
Right.
But when we got home, we ordered one meal, and we had some, we made dinner at home and ate, and both of us were like, oh God, we can't eat food here anymore. Because there's, regardless of what you look at, unfortunately, is you look at the water and you look at the environment, the soil that things are grown in. Both of them are polluted. 95% of of the farmland in this country is loaded with glyphosate over the last 50 years.
Right.
And so it doesn't matter if it's grown organic. And they even changed the designation for organic in 2019. Right? Because they're still using so many pesticides and everything. They're like, well, if it's grown in its natural environment, it's organic.
Yep.
It doesn't matter if you load it with glyphosate and other pesticides, or if it's GMO or anything else, but if it's grown in soil, it's organic. Like, we're in trouble here.
I mean, we are. And in cleansing yourself of toxins, and call it detox, call it whatever you want to call it, but like that's a big key. And I remember, for people that are, on the medication because they've got chronic disease, they're in, one of the things that I don't think he meant to say it, but early on in the COVID thing, when nobody really knew what was going on, and it was just sort of like, and they're doing their daily updates, and I caught this, and I was like, ooh, snapshot that. I'm going to keep that phrase. But Fauci gets up there, and somebody asked him about, medications, and are they safe? How do we know they're safe? And he said, well, I mean, all medication has toxicity to it.
There you go.
And he just kept going. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute.
Hold on.
Go back.
TikTok that real quick. Cut that.
I was like, wait a minute. And so, like, yes, if you have an acute thing and you need a medication to like take, like, I'm not telling you don't do that, but understanding that, okay, after I get over whatever that is, now I have to get those chemicals out of my body.
Yeah. Then what? Yeah. And I think that's even the crazy part when you look at pharma, that for a drug to be efficacious, it only needs to have like 40% efficacy.
Right.
Well, if I was playing baseball and I was effective 40% of the time, I'm going to make a lot of money. If I'm a surgeon and I go, at 40% of the time, I'm going to get the surgery right, they're going to go, odds are good. We're not letting you in the operating room.
Right.
It's like, it's like 60% of the time I'm wrong all the time. I'm like,
right.
No, this is not good. And it's like, well, the complications might be minor. They might be death. Let's roll it and find out. Let's see which one you get.
Yeah.
But I is there another option? Well, yes, there's other options, but we're not going to provide them to you because we don't make money on it. So don't listen to that. That's heresy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or they just they haven't ever taken the time to learn about it.
And I think honestly the educational component is the key. That we are each solely responsible for our own health. This universe that exists within the skin suit. Yeah. It is honestly the only thing that we're responsible for, and we're told when you get on the plane, but if the oxygen masks come down, put yours on first before you try to help anybody else. You have to help yourself.
Yep.
If you're not taking care of yourself, no one else cares.
Yeah.
Right. No one else is put here to take care of you. Right. And teenagers, if the teenagers are watching this, your entitlement issues, you millennials, are friggin' terrible. No one else is taking care of you. We're not put here to take care of you, right? You're responsible for your own well-being, for your own performance, your own actions. And if you don't invest in that, you are going to literally become a victim of your environment.
Yeah.
And and then it's trying to figure out, okay, how do you do that effectively? And then having the right people that have the right mind and the right heart to work to create solutions, but then do those solutions work.
Yeah.
And that's been the journey. And then now, once you come up with ideas, you test them, you put them in the market, and then you watch how things behave, and then being able to collaborate with other physicians, other athletes and professionals and parents and kids, and you watch the outcomes and you track the outcomes, and they're going, we're doing this and we're seeing this, right. We're doing this and we're seeing this, and we've got athletes that are performing at all. We've got a world champion in fencing over in Hungary. She's 25. She just won the Olympics last year.
Nice.
And her doctor is the doctor for the Hungarian Olympic Committee. So he's a big deal. He's kind of good at what he does.
Right.
And so he was presenting her case studies. Like, we've been working with her for 2 years. She's the world champion. We put her on, the clean slate, 0 in and restore. We titrated her up. And in 2 weeks, she had a 50% improvement in her reaction and quickness. And I'm like,
wow.
Hold on. Wait, what?
Wow.
And I'm like, hold on, this is the world record holder already. So that means you just made her untouchable.
Right.
But bro, I was an athlete. I was a sprinter. I was trying to do a 5% improvement. Are you saying you said 50%? I'm like, how did you track that? He's like, she's been doing the DOT test for 2 years. I mean, we've got all of her data. She was doing this and then she's doing this.
Wow.
I'm like, okay. So it gets into understanding the physiological components of how that applies, and how you can measure things in sports, but also how it applies just to your overall health and your well-being and how things function on a daily basis. Because of, when we look at neurotransmission in the central nervous system and proprioception and reaction time and quickness and how all those apply into business, whether it's being able to read paperwork or identify scenarios and say, oh, you know what, there's a trend here, we need to do this. And but then the athletic standpoint of knowing that if pathways are cleaner, if you can remove the heavy metals and environmental toxins, whether it's from your vascular system or your brain or your central nervous system or, neurons and nerves and such, where these metals will amalgamate and create chaos, if you start to clean those out, and then you're boosting like endogenous dopamine and serotonin and norepinephrine production, which is the keys to performance, because dopamine just makes you outstanding.
Yeah.
Which is why Rick James said cocaine is a hell of a drug and why it's illegal in sports.
Right. Yep.
Right. Daryl Strawberry's like, actually, no, it was a pretty good run.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But being able to do that endogenously and give people the understanding that you don't need a lot of chemicals. You actually don't need mushrooms, to produce DMT. You need to take care of your gut. You need to clean out your brain, your pineal gland, the rest of your operating system. And then your gut needs the tools that necessary to, and naturally produce the dopamine and serotonin that your brain desires based on your intention. And, so your brain, your heart, your gut are getting those key components that they really need. Yeah. And he goes, boom. And you get to watch it have fun. And it's been an interesting journey over the last 3, because of being an athlete 25 years ago. I'm like, I wish I had then what I have now. I would have been a different dude.
Yeah.
But
and that's, you see that in so many different aspects when it comes to, especially with athletics, like, because I was telling you before, like, I started running in the Masters circuit. And so last year I bought a pair of super shoes, like the super spikes, and I ran a race in them, and I finished the race and I went, I would have broke 4 minutes in these.
Yep.
Like I ran 4:05. I was like, I would have broke 4 minutes. Easy. Piece of cake. Like done. And I was just like, oh man, like to go back 30 years and have that, but doing it, and one of the things that I saw on your website is that you've got the certifications, the drug-free certifications, and all of those things, which is one of the things that really stoked me, because I'm like, as an athlete that's still competing, and when I go to some of these, especially the USA Track and Field, they're still drug testing even us old people. Because.
And as an older person now, because I've wanted to go do this since, now that I've recovered from my college injury. Yeah. A lot of those guys are going to the track meets for the senior circuit and go, what drugs are you testing for?
Right.
Like, and a couple of my teammates that were, world or NCAA champion, like triple jumpers and long jumpers. I mean, they were so high, they were floating when they were jumping. And I'm like, is that a performance enhancing drug?
Right.
I'm like, well, it enhances the flavor of food.
Right.
I don't know about helping you nail a launch or anything, but if we're testing for it, okay. But it is the interesting part. We had to get the certifications. Is it started from some of our athletes. I actually have a friend, a family friend that's here in Nashville with us. He's an offensive coordinator for an NFL team, and his son is friends with my son. And of course, my son is passing pills out at school like Skittles. And I'm like, you're going to get me sued. But he gave, his friend gave some to his dad, and we were at we had man school for, kind of a mentorship for a bunch of guys. And he was speaking, and, I went up and said, hi. I said, there's going to be a point here rather soon that we have a formal introduction, but it was good to meet you. And he's like, hold on, you're the dude with the pills. I'm like, and here we go.
Yeah.
He's like, I took one of those last night, and he said I had way more vodka than I should have had. I took one of those before bed, and I took some of those drops, and I woke up in the morning. I slept amazing. I woke up in the morning with no hangover. What is this stuff?
Yeah.
And is it legal?
Right.
He said, because I'll put my quarterback on this stuff right now if you can show me that it's clean. I'm like, well, give me a minute. Call the Banned Substances Control Group. I'm like, hey, we need to have some testing done. And being able to, and it's the hard part to be able to talk through it with athletes, because the outcomes that we're seeing, we have this published. I mean, we've got clinical case studies from doctors having, and now, with different athletes in different sports, having performance improvements that we've never seen physiologically. And it's really the cool part of understanding that as an athlete, with this search, this journey that we've always had, to tinker and tweak and try to get the most out of what we have, that there truly is there's this level of performance that is within us that we've never been able to tap into because of how locked up we've been, from this toxic overload standpoint. And as you start to clean that out, and as you give the body the tools, and you open up our true capability, I think we're going to see athletes like rewrite record books,
right?
And it's really intriguing. Like one instance, we have a bowler, right? AJ, I forgot AJ's last name. Professional bowler, never won on tour in like I think he's been bowling for like 3 to 5 years. Never won before. A friend of his who's a professional trainer for basketball, and she was a former professional bowler in her own right, and she's got different athletes in different sports. She trains all over Europe. Yeah, and so she put him on stuff. And after, I think it was like 2 weeks, he went to his competition, makes the finals, bowls a 300 game in the final to win it. So not only did he win the first time, he was perfect. Yeah. So 2 weeks later, this is like 2 weeks ago, he gets invited to be an alternate for the U.S. team for the Pan Am Games here a couple of weeks ago. Because somebody was sick or got injured, so they're like, "Hey, you just won, come play." Right. So what does he do? And the Pan Am Games, after doing that, makes the finals for personal, bowls another 300 game in the final to win the Pan Am Games.
Oh my gosh!
I'm like, okay, that's a little bit better than never winning before. And he's like, no, I can't tell you, what this is like, and whether it's golf and professional golf, of the visualization aspect. And the same thing with running is you run the race in your head before you run the race. Oh, yeah. You already know what you're going to do. You know how it's going to play out. Yep. But being able to just have this level of functionality that is well beyond anything that we've even known we're capable of, that you go, wow, this is unique. This makes competition fun. Right. And it's entertaining, that part. And it's the important part, from a brand standpoint is being able to build that trust, right? Because there's, and this from consulting, there's so much shit. There's just so much garbage and trash and misinformation and ignorance and just terrible formulation, poor ingredients, right? From a quality standpoint, or just the wrong stuff that is so heavily promoted that it's very difficult to stand out and go, wait a minute, we've done it right. Yeah. But being able to have a mechanism that just allows the consumers to really dictate the process has been a journey, but it is it's that key of knowing that if you do it right, if you really understand this bioscience engineering, game.
Yeah.
One, you can reverse aging. That biological and chronological age are not linear.
Right.
Right. And it's biblical. I mean, Noah built the ark when he was 600 years old, and we're going, wait a minute, I'm trying to make it to 60.
Yeah.
Right. And
unfortunately, the chronological age, like the life expectancy, keeps dropping, which is, it had never happened 2 years in a row, except for like the Spanish flu years.
Yep.
And then it started happening before COVID. And then, of course, COVID makes it worse. But even if you take COVID out, it's still dropping.
Yep.
And it's like, what are we doing wrong? Right.
Like what's the impetus? And you hear the conversations, and my Christina was at the World Economic Forum earlier this year on a few panels, and it was interesting to garner some insight from that side, right, of talking about how they envision population management, and what their talking points are. And their talking points, so many people get upset over the propaganda that they want to put out on how they want to do stuff, but when you listen to people, you understand how ignorant they are, right?
Yeah.
But if you're in an echo chamber and that's all you're hearing is the same messaging, and you begin to think, well, this is the only thing, and being able to bring in an alternative and go, actually, no, you don't need to kill off 60% of the population. 8 billion people can live really comfortably here if we all work together and we all do this right, and we clean up the environment. Is it global warming? No, it's not global warming. It's global pollution. Right? These are the things that are addressing it. This is how it's infecting every aspect of our lifestyle. This is why the health of our population is so terrible. It's why people are lethargic. It's why they're fat. They're not fat and lazy. They're fat and inflamed.
Right.
And being able to, to provide some different insight of understanding that we truly are victims of our environment. We're victims of our own creation. And we don't live in bubbles. Right. I think we've so wanted to think that I'm in my own little bubble. And, I live in Williamson County, Tennessee, which is known as the bubble. Right. And because it's such a unique demographic that we have in our area, but what goes on in Ukraine or what's been done in Japan has a direct impact on what goes on in my town, not because of what somebody's coming, but what's up in the air, what's in the water is or what it's all ending up here. It's in the food supply. It's like, oh, well, let's go to Nobu and go have some fish, and like, let's have good tuna. I'm like, oh, I love tuna, and I know what's in it. It's like, okay, so I'm gonna take the consequence because I know how to deal with it. But these are the things, and I've talked to people. I had one guy, the worst case of mercury poisoning I've ever seen. I'm like, how'd this happen to you? He's like, I ate 6 cans of tuna fish every day for 3 years.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, and he's like, and now my skin's like blue. I'm like, okay. And even Rogan was talking about this with his interview with Elon Musk a little last week. And he's like, oh yeah, I love anchovies and I got arsenic poisoning from anchovies.
Right.
Wait, what? And, the information is now starting to come out to where scientists and researchers are like, well, 95% of the water supply is loaded with these chemicals that cause cancer. Duh.
Right.
And, the food, the food's loaded with all these different things, let alone what they're knowingly putting in as additives or in, shots into animals now and whatnot. It's like, no, it's just, we're all poisoned. And understanding biomagnification is something that it's not taught. We don't even think about it, but understanding, predatory animals, or, if you're eating fish or, what have you. And even from a vegan standpoint, the hard part is I've got friends that are vegan or vegetarian. I'm like, what do you like to eat? They're like, well, I get my protein from hummus and from soy. I'm like, okay, well, chickpeas, garbanzo beans, and soybeans are the most toxic things on the market. So odds are good you're getting loaded with glyphosate as you're doing this, because even the best stuff on the market, it still has it in there. So you're getting it in volume, and you're like, we don't win on this deal unless we do stuff outside support what's needed. And that's the important part, is you can do the things to try to eat and, add, lifestyle components, and try to, use the right containers, and,
Right.
use water filters and air filters, and, try to find your fruits and veggies. And
well, and simple things like I helped a friend of mine who was just it was really strange. She woke up one day and was just like, she was just jaundiced, and like it was just like a night and day, like boom, liver decided to stop, boom, done. And so she was, she was like, what do I do? And so I helped her with her food and everything. And I was like, okay, we need to get you into the right kind of specialist, because she went to up one of the hospitals in Dallas, and they were like, I mean, we'll put you on the liver transplant list, but like you're pretty much, you don't have a chance. They were like, well, you're done. And her husband calls me from the hospital, and he's like, dude, what the hell? And I'm like, okay, so she's in bad shape. We need to get a doctor that's going to be. Yeah. So I found one in Austin that was functional minded, that was like in one of the first things he said to do, which I hadn't thought of, but now obviously it's high on my list. He was like, take all your cleaning supplies in your house, put them in a box, and put them in the garage as far away as you can. And he was like, what? Okay. And as soon as he told me that, I was like, oh yeah, it makes total sense.
Yep.
Right. And so he did. And he said, like 2 days later, he happened to walk in the garage for something, and he was like, holy cow, I can't stay in here. This smells so bad. It's like the concentration of it.
Yep.
Right. But when we spread them all out, and it's like, oh, we're going to put one in the bathroom or one under the kitchen sink or it's like, we don't realize how much it is, part of our environment. And that's something none of us sit there and consume cleaner through our mouth or anything like that, but how many of us don't wear gloves when we're doing the cleaning? We don't. And
well, so you get the fresh scent, and you walk in, you're like,
right,
that's not good. And the crazy part with our olfactory senses is the, how adaptive the human body is, that you might have those chemicals off-gassing, but it doesn't take very long with persistent exposure. It's the same thing with like cat urine, right? If you have a cat, you go into the cat lady's house and you're like, your house smells like piss.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's great. I'm like, actually your senses have just shut that off because it's so persistent. It's like, look, I don't need to deal with this anymore. I'm just going to say you can't smell it anymore.
Right.
And the chemical exposure standpoint is just that. You don't, we're so adaptive to our environment that you might be persistently, chronically exposed to something that you can't even recognize anymore because it's been so persistent. And then it's a matter of how you get the stuff out. The liver is something that is so not talked about properly, is how influential it is, from a skin health standpoint,
right?
Whether it's eczema, psoriasis, acne, all, the stress lines people get.
Yep.
Even anger and your ability to manage stress all comes from liver toxicity, but then understanding your liver being the filter, but your liver is also regenerative, but we've become so overburdened that the same process that the rest of the body does to store toxins, which is to inflate fat and have the fat cells store all these things. Our livers are so overburdened that they're just fatty now because of, the mechanism to try to save itself.
Yeah.
And you're right. You get to you a lot of times don't get any signs. And then it goes, nope, that's it. Yep. I'm done for now. You can clean me up if you know how, but I got nothing for you.
Yeah.
And, you mentioned the transplant aspect. And when we look at rejection, and transplant rejection, one of my theories, when I started really switching my mindset like 18 years ago was, talking to people about transplants and having a background in anatomy and physiology, knowing that if you find a compatible part, in the most transplanted organs are, kidneys and liver, and then some hearts. And actually one of my good friends from back home, he was the tribal chairman. He was the chief of the Chehalis Indian tribe. And he is the longest living heart transplantee ever. Wow. He got a heart transplant when he was 50 from a 23-year-old kid that died in a car accident in Alaska, who was native. Yeah. So he got a matching heart from a kid 27 years younger. within a short period of time, he actually started growing facial hair, which he'd never done before. So the heart.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
The kid had a beard.
Oh,
So
nice.
the resonance from the heart,
Yep.
and I think he's 80 now, and that heart's still going.
Wow.
But when you look at livers and kidneys and such, being a filter, they look to see if you're a match biologically for the tissue. What they don't look at is what's in the tissue. So when that organ is transplanted into you, your body is going, okay, the tissue is good, but what's in this is toxic. So how do we address this? No, we need to fight this thing.
Right.
And it gets into interesting pathways of, why the body would reject it.
Right.
And how that process takes place, and getting into the environmental component of how that works and why it works, and talking, because I'm not a doctor, but talking with other doctors and physiologists and going, does this theory make sense? They're like, yes, it makes sense. I'm like, and why have you not thought about it before? I'm like, because we're not taught that, and that doesn't work in our scope. Like,
right.
Okay, so you're saying you can transplant an organ and you get a perfect match, but you give the person 6 months or 3 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's and that actually goes back to where my whole podcast ever came from, was from a Facebook post that I did, where I ranted on. So a friend of my wife's had decided to go keto, and stopped at a convenience store on a trip and did a Marco Polo with all her friends. And so my wife saw that, she's like listening to it. I'm in the room, in the bedroom, my wife's listening to it. And I'm like, wait, what did she play that again? She said, I'm at a convenience store and I'm keto. So I'm new to this. I'm trying to figure it all out, but who knew that pork rinds were keto? So I got a bag of pork rinds. And I was like, so my rant was, okay, wait a minute. So when they kill the pig, there's toxins in the skin. Those toxins stay in the skin, and you're eating the toxins of da 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 da. And so like let's put this all together, and like, oh, and so that's where the podcast came from, because my friend was like, you've got to start sharing stuff like this, because people don't think about like that part of it, and yeah, I know that, like, obviously grass-fed beef is better than the farmed stuff that who knows what they're getting fed. And I know a little bit, because one of the jobs I had before, I had to call on a place that was taking all the old candy bars and candy that that goes past its expiration date and they can't sell anymore. This place was buying it all up, melting it all down, and making cattle chips out of it. So they were feeding cattle basically straight sugar.
Oh God.
Yeah. So which
it makes for chocolate milk.
Well, but it makes it go like, okay, well, if the cows are getting all that and it's staying in their body, and then like maybe that meat that's getting that kind of stuff is contributing to diabetes and stuff, because you're getting a lot more sugar than you're expecting.
Oh, yeah. And and what that does from a milk production standpoint and everything,
and so it's very much like, you have to be as careful as you can. Obviously, we can't be too careful. Nobody can be 100% all the time. It's not, and so having something that has proven outcomes that you can do to help detox and keep things moving through your system. Because like you said, like mercury poisoning is extremely hard to deal with and to detox from.
Used to
some
be.
of these other chemicals. Well, but it's still not fun.
No, it is the journey. But I think the important part in this is when you look at the health journey of becoming really highly functioning, it's the same approach to athletic training, right? Most of us as athletes ideally started when we were really young.
Yeah.
Right. And, so you're able to build and that goes into the importance of activity when you're young and being able to build the muscle. But if you're an athlete and you're starting an event, you aren't going to go from, oh, I'm choosing to do this and I'm going to be elite in 3 weeks.
Right.
Like, no, sorry, there's a journey. It's like, there's a process that you're going to go through, and this is not a fast one.
Yeah.
and you're not going to like some of the stuff, and it's going to be painful, or, and the health journey doesn't have to be painful, but knowing that there's a long-term process and a level of commitment that it takes in order to gain, the opportunity to truly get the outcomes that you want. And that same journey applies in the health space. There's commitment, there's choices, there's things that you have to do, some of which you go, well, this is not what I want to do. I'm like, well, and that's okay. You don't have to if you don't want to, but the alternative is death.
Right.
Or, or a very poor quality of life.
Yeah.
Or you're going to be amazing. You choose, know, and the cool part is those marks along the way that you start hitting those points and go, wait a minute, this is better. And I hit that time. That's better than what I was before. And this is better, and this is better. And being able to track those metrics is one, it's fun, but it's also crucial. Yeah.
Well, and I want to be respectful of time. I feel like I could talk to you for like hours on this because it's I can tell you get it, you understand it, you know what's going on, and I think that's probably also why the brand has taken off and done so well, is because it's not just about we're going to put some hot name ingredients in this stuff and hope that it works, but sell it based on the fact that ashwagandha's a big name right now, right?
You know what? and that was the funny thing. It's funny being in the I'll say the supplement world. Mm-hmm. There are different ingredients, and there's always different science and things that are coming out. But each year there's a different item that's a buzzword.
Sure.
Right? It's like, and ashwagandha was the big one this year. It's like, oh my God, ashwagandha is amazing. And now it's mushrooms. And oh, well, there's this mushroom does this mushroom does this. And you're like, do you know fungus will actually take over the host if it's not the right environment? And fungus likes to grow in trash. And if you don't clean up this, you're actually in an environment that will grow that stuff actually effectively if you throw the spores in your body.
Yeah.
And like for next year, 2024, the big word is actually going to be colostrum.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And we launched so a year ago. It was interesting how it came about. But I went to my amazing spouse and was like, okay, can you make us a collagen colostrum combination? Because no one's ever done. I didn't know why anyone had ever not done it before.
Right.
Because bovine collagen and bovine colostrum are the two best sources. Right. And so I'm like, okay, let's do this. And a lot of our community was like, can you give us a vegan alternative?
Right. Of course.
And the hard part is it's hard to milk plants. So you're not going to get colostrum from them. And plant sources, of collagen are not ideal for human synthesis, right? They're good sources, but it's not ideal for how our body functions.
Yeah.
And so she did what she does, and it took about a year, but she was able to source a cruelty-free source of bovine collagen and a scientific herd of cattle that is bred and raised specific for their colostrum content. So it's a whole colostrum, but it's also cruelty-free sourced. Yeah. So you actually have the two best sources that, are vegan friendly because they're not cruel. You have people that are like, I'm not eating anything from animals. And they're like, okay, that's fine too.
Right.
But, having the science of knowing that you can do the work properly to create really good products. And you're going to make compromise in that, right? Good things cost more. And that's been the one thing for us, especially being a couple, right? I'm handling a lot of the business side. She handles the science, the formulation and the creation. And early on, like with Restore, which is our primary gut product.
Right.
And we had she created the first formulation based on what she wanted to do and how she wanted to use it for herself. And we went to our lab and she's like, this is what I want. And they're like, one, no one's ever done anything like this before. And then they were like, two, we can't do that because the amount of ingredients that you want to put in here will stain your teeth.
Oh gosh.
And two and three, I don't think that you understand how much this is going to cost.
Right.
So I went back to her and like, tweak it. And so she cut everything almost in half.
Mm-hmm.
And we went back to them and said, we want this. And they came back and said, well, we can do this, but here's just the cost.
Right.
And, here's what you need to put it in the market. And they're like, this is going to be really, really expensive. And you're going to have, and then understanding the marketing side, I'm like, how are we going to explain this?
Right.
So then it was, as a couple and being business owners and going, okay, what's important to us? Is it margin or is it outcomes?
Right.
We're not going to make as much on these products, and we're giving a lot back to the people that actually create the value.
Right.
But our margins are going to be tighter, but our outcomes and what we're going to do for humanity and our customers are going to get what they really need. So what's important?
Right.
Always the customer. It's always the experience and the outcomes, and being able to see that and watch it become successful. And knowing, I think that's the important aspect of, being an athlete, and applying that into business, of knowing that you don't stack dollars, right? You're not stacking dollars in training, you're stacking pennies.
Yep.
And it's those little things, it's those little improvement. And then, if you do things consistently and you just do it over and over and over and over again, that you're going to find success. Yeah. And if you take care of a lot of people and you make a little bit on a lot, you can do really well. You shouldn't try to make a lot on a little, because then you're imbalanced. Yep. So it's just enjoying the journey.
Yep. So how can people get in touch with the Root Brands?
So we'll have a link.
Find out more. Yeah.
There'll be a link there.
There'll
you
be
can
a
go
link
to therootbrands.com with a little link that we'll have down here.
Yeah.
You can find us on social media. We have four primary pieces of our operating mantra, which are easy. So it's education, authenticity, simplicity, and integrity.
Nice.
The educational component and the simplicity component are so crucial, because in order to really provide value, you have to educate. I mean, as you know, it's the biggest thing you do with your clients.
Yep.
Right. And it's okay, how do we educate? But in order to educate, you actually have to really understand your subject matter.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you have the ability to take something really complex and make it simple, then you can teach it.
Yeah.
But if you can't make it simple, you don't know it well enough in order to educate people on it.
Right.
And I think the big part, in that is just then having the authenticity, right? Because we live in a society that's being built to try to get everybody to be alike, look like me, social media and everything, when it's our authenticity that is actually so crucial. Even with the recent research energetically of what emotion is the most powerful energetically, it's not love. Love was second. It's actually authenticity. That when you are, functioning in your true authentic self, that's actually when you can truly give and receive love.
Right.
But recognizing that it's what makes us unique. It's what makes us special that is really the powerful part. And that's what people want to see.
Right. Exactly.
And, being able to, put those together and watch them blend and amalgamate and come out of people. And I think that's been the real intriguing aspect of this journey. From a clinical perspective, seeing things that the medical establishment haven't seen before.
Right.
And being able to grow up in a clinical practice and seeing it in animals and in people.
Right.
And then developing what initially was, you can say, a lifestyle health brand, with a few products that's now expanded into like 12, consumable products, along with a new skincare line and a coffee line to actually use some of our detox technology to detoxify the coffee beans, to get rid of the fungus and the ochratoxins and mycotoxins, and actually make, from concept, actually come up with something that is now an extremely high level specialty coffee because of how it grades out, but it's some of the best coffee you can drink because all the crap isn't in it.
Right.
And, developing an animal line. And then when Christina was at Harvard, she actually created a nano skin coating, which is the craziest thing of how smart people can be.
Yeah.
But she created a nano skin coating that you can spray on your skin or put on your clothes to protect you and protect your skin. Protect your skin from your clothes, because that's a major point of pollution.
Right. Yep.
But also use your clothes and allow your skin to protect itself from the environment. 5G, from radiation, from, other environmental exposures, whether it's heavy metals and viruses and fungus and parasites.
Right.
Because if you're a savant, you come up with these kind of things, and we're just sitting here going, I got nothing. But it's
but it is, there's so many ways to protect yourself.
Yeah.
And it takes people like yourself and your wife that have to sit there and go like, okay, well, we've always done it this way. Why?
Yeah. What needs to change? If we've always done it this way, and these are the outcomes that we're getting, and we look at, life expectancy used to be 75. Now it's 69.
Yeah.
Obviously, something needs to change here a little bit, because a regression in longevity is not the ideal situation. Right. And then when you look at those little numbers and go, oh, it's okay. Sperm counts dropped by over 50% in the last 20 years. Fertility in women is dropped by 50 to 60%. And you go, if we were looking at in an animal population, if say we were applying that in the Amazon and we were looking at a specific butterfly, we go, that's an extinction event.
Right.
Because you're 3 generations from being at 0.
Yep.
You go, I don't know if this is the right way to do things. Maybe we should come up with some changes. Yep.
No, and that's, and the scary thing is that, like, and I talked to some high schoolers a couple of weeks ago about into their health class, and I was like, okay, well, let's look at perspective. You're 18, 16, like, you really don't care what, you're invincible, right? Well, guess what? Your retirement age is going to move to like 67. But if things don't change, you won't live that long. So you're never going to have
You're going to be 65 going, I'm almost retired. And it's like, I made it 10 years longer than Steve Jobs. I'm like, good for you.
Yeah.
But here you go.
It's like you've already had the fun that you're going to have, because you're going to be working the rest of your life, because you're never going to retire.
And the interesting aspect, and I've gone over this with my kids, my youngest son, he's 19, just graduated from high school, and talking with we've got 27, 24, 19, and 18, the baby girl being the young one. And talking to these kids now, they're like, we need to live our best lives when we're younger. We're going to do all this stuff now, and then we're just going to work until we die. But we got all the experiences up front.
Right.
Might be a little bit to that. But doing it right and being good along the way, and being able to work to a point where you get to enjoy yourself, is also a really good thing.
Yeah.
And being able to be around, high performing people, and there's the interesting blend of, as an entrepreneur or as an individual, we work so hard to make sacrifices to attain a point where we attain freedom, right? Whether it's from an exit or retirement, saying, okay, I've built this nest egg up, or I was able to sell off a company, and I have all this money, and I'm able to enjoy my life. But through that entire time of getting there, most of them sacrifice their health in order to attain that wealth. And then thinking, oh, I've got the money, I can buy that back because I now have money, so I can have that. And a lot of times, your body goes, no, that's not how the deal works. Right. And the age of 50 being the golden number.
Oh, yeah.
That you can, and science has proven this, you can pretty much do whatever the hell you want to the human body for 50 years. And then one night the server comes by and goes, here's your check.
Yep.
Like, it's due now. And you go,
yep,
I can't afford that. I'm like, oh, well, here's your heart attack. Here's cancer. Here's a couple strokes and some neuropathy. Yep. And you go, no, I don't want that. Like, no, but this is what you did. You ordered it. You put it on the menu.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. And the converse of that is, if you get to 50 with none of that stuff, like the averages are, you're going to 100.
Yeah. And you're going to enjoy it, and I think that's one, it's the importance of athletics, right? So when you're young, and trying to instill that in kids now and in parents is like, look, you don't do sports just from a competitive standpoint. So you have participation. Yeah. It's so important to develop as a human, right? You're not supposed to look like Gandhi. That's not natural. Right. While each of us, has a body type that we've been constructed, whether it's through genetics, and all of the, blood type, genetics, geography, all these different things that have an impact. But it's activity, it's work, that creates the ability to build that. And that's what carries forward. Yeah. And if you don't do it when you're young, you really can't do it to the extent that you need to as you age.
Yeah.
Right. And, just like you're talking about, it's like, well, I had a little bit of a reprieve. I trained my ass off for a couple decades and then decided to take a break. But now I'm going to get back into it. Yeah. And your muscles go, thanks for coming back. We've been waiting.
Exactly.
But if you haven't developed them, your body's going, the hell are you thinking?
Yep.
Like, I'm not ready for this.
We don't do that.
I'm going to quit on you.
Yep. So we've got the link. We know the how to get in touch and stay in touch and find out what's going on. What is what's the next big thing that y'all are like looking to put out?
We've got the end of the year. So it's November 15th right now. Everything that we've had built, what Christina's done is actually build a process that you can live on. Mm-hmm. Right. So if the food supply gets bad, check. Right. If you're traveling in different parts of the world, you can't drink the water, you can't do stuff. What do you have that you can live on and survive on? Yeah. Or just from a day-to-day life standpoint, that's pretty much everything that she's built. But there were a couple of key pieces that we didn't have. So, I begged my wife like a year ago. I'm like, can you make me an amino supplement? Because I need my aminos, and beef and, our primary sources of protein are not the quality that they need to be anymore. And you can't trust a lot of stuff. And, you go and honestly, as an athlete, being a mesomorph and an O, and a sprinter, and still trying to maintain some muscle, the amount of protein and the amount of work, the amount of fats to go along with, the vegetables and the other key components you need is a burden, right? You can't eat anymore enough to get what we truly need. So it's how you figure out how to do them properly and the right sources. And she went and sourced, there's a couple forms of phytoplankton. We use one of them in our skincare products. And it is virtually the perfect food. Mm-hmm. Because of its protein and amino profile, that if you use it topically, it literally regenerates your skin in almost no time.
Oh, wow.
But when you also consume it, it's the perfect combination of everything. And you combine that with a couple other things, couple different peptides and such, your body reconfigures. So we're getting ready to launch that. I think we're going to have it ready in December. I'm so excited for that because I was 4% body fat in college. We get to train, we get to see the benefits of it, and then when we age a little bit, we realize how much work it took to do that. And we're like, no, not doing that again.
It's tough.
I joke with my kids. I'm like, look, I'm a ribeye now. I'm like, I like to be well marbled.
Yeah.
I don't need to be that petite filet. And it's like, well, it's the best cut. I'm like, no. I need some marbling in there so I look all right.
Yeah.
But being able to know that we've kind of got the final pieces to the puzzle, that are coming. So if you wanted to, you said, okay, here's my regimen. I'm going to add, some extra protein sources or different fats and different things to my diet to make sure I've got everything, but everything's available to you. So you got your coffee, you got, the key components, collagen and colostrum, to go along with the detoxification support, and the greens that kind of incorporate all the spirulina and the chlorella and the core, deep greens, along with some metabolic, assistance, gut health, neurotransmission, all of those things taken care of is like, here, go. And, seeing the outcomes, in really elite performing athletes and watching their improvements and it's just like you talked about, there's no perfect diet. There's no perfect lifestyle. And honestly, I don't think anyone should try to find that, because there's a lot of stuff that tastes good.
Yeah.
Right. The worst thing you can do is restrict yourself completely.
Right.
Right. If you like cake, then every once in a while, have a piece of cake. Don't eat a whole damn cake at once.
Right. And every day.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, great. I'm going to have ice cream every night. Well, odds are good that's probably not going to be a good idea.
Right.
It's like, oh, I'm going to have a half a bottle of tequila every night. Well, tequila is great for you, actually, but that much, not a good idea.
Right.
And just understanding that we are made to enjoy this experience, right? It shouldn't be burdensome. It shouldn't create a massive amount of toxicity, but if you are consistent in doing really good things to take care of yourself, you can then do other things that might not be perceived as positive all the time, and go, yeah, I'm going to go out with the boys, or I'm going to go out with friends, and I'm going to have a few drinks. I might get hammered. I might eat some things that I shouldn't have eaten. And you go, okay, you're going to pay for that. There's consequences. You're going to wake up and go, oh God, I should not have done that. Yeah. And you know that going in. So if you elect to do that, you just know what the consequence is.
Right.
And you plan accordingly. I think that's a lot more fun than going, I can't do this.
Yeah.
Like, stupid.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and having things like Zero In and Restore and the other products that you've got to be able to say, okay, well, here, and maybe not safety net may not be the right word for it, but here's my, like, I put this in my plan so that I can have those occasional things that other people look at and go, you can't eat that. That's not healthy. That's not da da da. Like, okay, well, I've got my body working to that stuff. It doesn't stick.
Yeah.
Right. Like my
it's like
body's working. Right. And if your body's not working and it's not working because you're seeing, like you talked about, your fats increasing, your fatty liver, all those different things are starting to happen, and you're starting to degrade, like, then obviously, like, one of those nights is going to make you feel really bad, and it's going to stick around for quite some time, probably.
Yep. And then you'll see, oh, well, this didn't go away in 12 hours. It's something that's here for a couple of weeks. We've had an opportunity to have this conversation with one of my son's friends, because they were getting life insurance done. And he's like 19, 20-year-old kid, and got declined for life insurance.
Oh, wow.
And so we got to have a little conversation of, this, let me make sure you understand what this means.
Right.
That company is taking your money to gamble on you living a long time.
Yeah.
And they said, you're not a good bet.
Right.
And they were looking at, they sent back the blood work, and they're like, no, I mean, liver inflammation markers, there's these substances that were in your bloodstream at this time. Yeah. This is a ticking time bomb. And you go, 6 months, 2 years, 5 years, 10, maybe. Right. If you continue, your body's going to go, nope, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, well, you're saying I'm going to die. I'm like, I'm not saying you're going to die. One, that's a guarantee.
Right.
But two, the insurance company is going, we're not expecting it to be a long time from now.
Right.
And if you continue this behavior, evidence shows this is not going to be a positive outcome.
Right.
So, and it's interesting because you see that in adults, they have that event that's the wake up call, and they go, oh shit, I need to, it's like, well, do you think a bypass was really the ideal marker to go, I should get healthy now?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
No, we can.
And if it's coming to that, it's the things that are in place habit wise, are really hard to break and overcome.
Yes. Well,
and that motivation is really tough to get.
It is, and I think it's the hard part in a lot of instances, especially from a coaching standpoint of how you effectively communicate with an individual. Mm-hmm. That you have reason and you have force in winning an argument. But in communication, having to break out the fear card, which I hate, but being able to put the fear card on the table and go, you think you're doing all these things to have fun. When do you want to die?
Yeah.
You go, oh, a long time from now. It's like, you keep doing this. You got 2 years. You go,
right,
huh?
Right.
Like, I don't want to do that. I'm like, no, you're just getting started. but this is what I'm not guaranteeing it because I don't word curse anybody. I'm like, you keep doing these behaviors, this is a possible outcome. And statistically, your percentages of this happening are probably greater than what you want to accept.
Yep.
And just say, look, we live in this new environment, of just monetary chaos, so people are looking at investments and easy money and all this stuff. And people have to understand that the most important investment, the investment that is going to yield the greatest return, is actually that which you invest in yourself and in your health, your well-being, and your performance.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter if you're a mom, if you're young and you haven't started a family yet, and you're knowing that, hey, you know what, there's things that, if you're a teenager or you're a millennial and you're sick and tired of Adderall, great. There's an alternative to that that's actually more effective and less expensive. That's Zero N. And we've proven that deal, but being able to do things that are going to allow you to have a healthy pregnancy or get pregnant and have a healthy child and, raise healthy children and be there for them, be healthy enough to not look at your kids when they're young and go, oh my God, you're wearing me out. Why don't you calm down? To, hey, let's go terrorize the park together.
Right.
Okay? Yep. And having that ability to have that life, which is key, because there is no, and especially, and then you can look at it as a business perspective, because the greatest investment a business or a company is going to make is in people. Because it's your customers that make you. Right. Nothing else. It's customer driven. Everything. You can make the greatest widget and know if no one wants it, you go, well, that failed. And so you've got to take care of yourself. And when you do that, then you create the example for others. And whether it's, how you talk to your friends and how you feel or what you're doing, or they look at you and go, you're different. What are you doing? Or why did you just torch everybody and you used to run in the middle of the pack?
Right.
I'm just better now.
Well, I greatly appreciate you, Clayton, for coming on and sharing really the stuff that people need to hear. And I think people need to model their life, and just like you just said, investing in themselves, both in a health standpoint and in everything that you consume, reading, what you watch, everything, and look at it as an investment in yourself. And are you going to pay dividends in the future or not? So thank you again. It's been a great episode.
Thanks for having me. 194 was good.
Yes, it was.
Thanks for checking out the Confidence Through Health podcast. Please subscribe, post a review, share this episode with those you love who need a little extra help with their health journey. Visit allinhealthandwellness.com to learn more about the coaching programs that I provide. All episodes are produced by the Social Media Cowboys, your source for all online marketing needs. Go to socialmediacowboys.com for more information.